Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am delighted to be here today with all of you in this webinar hosted by Urantia Association Education Committee. And during the meeting, we ask you please mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid disturbing background noises. If you want to speak, please raise your hand and unmute yourself. Please use the chat only for webinar-related questions and use headphones if you can to improve sound quality and to reduce echo background noises when speaking. Please do not type when your microphone is not muted. The session will be recorded for future study purpose use. The videos will be made available to the public in the Urantia Association YouTube channel. We ask you please turn off your camera if you do not like your image being used for records, and ask to speak off the record at any time when you do not want your say to be part of the videotape. This way, your part will be cut out of the video during editing. Today, we have with us Gaétan Charland. In this webinar, Gaétan will explore the theme improving the quality and effectiveness of the study groups, how study groups may be improved to work toward fulfilling the Urantia Book mission. Gaétan is a reader of the Urantia Book since 1979. He participated in a study group for the first time in 1987. And from that experience, he started 2 study groups in 1999. He was president of his local, national, and international association, and is now chair of the study groups committee of Urantia Association International and of this local association. He believes that study groups are the place where we can learn how to integrate the teachings of the Urantia Book and become, in our own ways, teachers ourselves. Thank you so much, Gaétan, for your willingness to serve.
Thank you, Jeannie. I guess she said it all. Maybe it's over now. No. Okay, so why not start with a small prayer? I remember during the study group symposium we had a few years ago, I think was David Glass composed a prayer for study group, and I was trying to locate it on my computer and could not find it this morning. But I will gladly supply such prayer for everyone attending this webinar. My main goal was to have everyone enjoy this webinar and learn a little bit from it. I don't say that I know everything about study groups. There are still many answers that I'm looking for, many questions that arise in my mind as we go through this experience of having study groups every week. So let's join me in that short prayer there before we start this webinar. So, dear Father, who is within us as a part, with our own spirit, guide us into this exercise, this session, to gain some wisdom, to be guided in our ways of doing, so that this revelation can one day be known by all the world and help change the world. Father, you know how much we desire that this revelation be part of our life, that it'll be integrated in our everyday living. Help us become those light that the world needs so much, so that the darkness that we see all around us can evaporate and be replaced by this light of truth that we glean from the Urantia Book and that we love so much. Help us gain as much wisdom as we can, as much knowledge as we can, so that we can become those teachers that the world needs, so that Jesus can one day, through us, walk among this earth and change the world. Amen. So, welcome everyone to this webinar. I don't know how long it will last, but I'll try to make it so that it won't last more than 2 hours. I've some text that I will read, some comments that I will make. I also have a PowerPoint presentation, some slides that will help this webinar go along and get you to understand what I will be presenting today. Like I said, I'm not knowledgeable about everything about study groups. I've been interested in study group for many, many years. I guess through my first experience with study group in 1987. And for me, that was an experience like finding the book again. And probably for some of you, every time you go through reading the book, if you belong to a study group or if you read it by yourself, you might read some pages of the book you've already read a few years ago and always discover new meanings in those words that are there. But for me, study groups gave me a lot of new meanings because I could glean from the other people in the group comprehension that they had. I could glean some part of that truth that I was looking for. So for me, study groups have been so important part of my life in trying to adapt my life to the teaching of the Urantia Book, because alone I could not do it. So let me start by saying this. Improving quality and effectiveness of study group is quite a challenge. In fact, you know, we can always think about what is quality. In fact, how can we improve effectiveness? Is our study group effective? So the webinar will explore how study groups can be improved so that it can fulfill the mission of the Urantia Book, so well stated in its foreword, which is to expand cosmic consciousness and enhance spiritual perception. While responding to the spiritual challenge found at the end of paper 196, the great challenge to modern man is to achieve better communication with the divine monitor that dwells within the human mind. So keep in mind these goals, as they will prove to be very important to the quality of study groups. There's much more that can be achieved in study group if we refer ourselves to the publication mandate, which encourages us to create thousands of study groups and train leaders and teachers. These were concerns that had been on my mind for many years. In fact, since I started my own study group in 1999, I had many questions at that time about how to have a very effective study group so that readers coming to the group would enjoy not only intellectual growth, but most importantly, a spiritual uplifting. By focusing my attention on those two goals, I also wanted to make my study group a place where women and young readers were as much at home as men were. There were also other areas of concern, such as increasing and retaining inadequate numbers of participants, help foster new study groups by offering a training ground for facilitators, as well as providing the practical resources to increase the effectiveness of not only integrating the teaching, but disseminating them in a natural, lively manner. Study groups are an endeavor that requires regular changes and adaptation so they can meet the challenge of our evolving culture that use different ways of learning, communicating, and socializing. A few things need to be understood or at least explored if a host of future hosts of a study groups want to have their study group meet these goals stated at the beginning of this presentation. So I'm going to share my screen with you people, and I'm going to show you part of the presentation I put together. Whoop, I got the wrong thing, clicked on the wrong thing. Okay, so you all see this. That's a nice picture that was taken in Israel. There's a place there in Israel where they built this beautiful temple, and it's run by some religious organization, and where priests go in meditation, where when priests are in trouble with their faith, they go to this place to find the answers they're looking for. And outside there's this beautiful sculptures, and it shows Jesus with his apostle. And I believe this was one of the first study groups that was happening at those times with Jesus and the apostles. So in fact, we are the followers of what Jesus did. He was the one to show us study groups, how they could be made. And if you remember what Jesus was doing at that time, he was teaching, but also he was answering questions. He was listening a lot to what his apostles were requiring or how they understood things. So the mission of the Urantia Book is to expand cosmic consciousness and enhance spiritual perception. And that's at the beginning of the book. And I believe that if we have study group, we need to focus as a host on this goal, which is very important. If we have a study group and we're not focusing on this goal, well, I think we're missing the boat somewhere. And the great challenge to modern man is to achieve better communication with the divine monitor that dwells within the human mind. And that's at the end of the book, you know. So it seems like the beginning of the book and the end of the book just joined together to tell us this strong message that we need to achieve to raise, you know, our consciousness so that we can manifest the will of God in our life. And so an early publication of the book has been provided so that may be in the end of the training of leaders and teachers. Now, if we don't, you know, believe that we are those, then we have to ask ourselves, who then are there? Who then are supposed to be the leaders and the teachers? And I do believe that hosts of study groups can be those leaders and teachers. Not the only one, but at least they're a good start. Thousands of study groups must be brought into existence. So today, you know, as you will see further down that presentation, I will bring in some number. Why I do this, it's very important that the effectiveness of study group can help in raising the number of study groups. So if we do have study groups and we're not doing our share of the work, and we're not doing our study group so that it can create new study groups, then we're missing one point, because study groups have many goals. Why are they so important, study groups? You know, so we have to ask this question time and time again, you know, when we do have our own study group. Why are they so important? And if you make some research about study groups on the internet, you'll find out that the Catholic Church have been involved in study group for years. In fact, in China, they call study groups homegrown church. And that's one way of, you know, disseminating their teaching without raising, you know, suspicions on the authority. And study groups are a little bit like a tree, you know, with the roots of a tree. You know, you don't grow a tree suddenly, you know, it has to grow roots first. And study groups are those roots that extend through family, friends, co-worker, society, politics, and everywhere. So I'm going to show you a little film. Do you hear it now?
Yes, yes.
as you could see, how religion expanded throughout the world, and by looking at the small bar at the timeline at the bottom of the video, you could see that it took hundreds and hundreds of years for religion to expand. So we have to think, you know, how much time it will take for us by creating teachers and leaders, how much it will take for the truth contained Urantia Book to conquer the whole world. And not only Christianity, but all the other religion of the world. So this is why teachers are so needed, and this is why I believe study groups is very important. So today, this is a map where you can see that in North America, at the time that I did this, I think it was about 2-3 years ago, there was 383 study groups in North America altogether. There was 117 in South America, 15 in Europe, 17 in Africa, 9 in Asia, and 8 in Australia and New Zealand. And, you know, so we can maybe add a few to that, maybe 5% of study group that we don't know about that exists throughout the world. But if you make a whole, you know, a number, a total of all those groups, it's barely more than 500 groups across the world. And many years ago, when I was talking with Barbara News and Carolyn Kendall, they told me that many years ago, probably in the 80s, before the split, there was more than 500 study groups just in the US. So it just tells you that sometimes when we do things, it hurts other things, you know, when we don't do the right thing. So here's the distribution of study groups that it was a few years ago. Registered worldwide, there was 484. Groups in North America, 383. Group in South America, 117. Group in Europe, 50. Group in Africa, 17. Group in Asia, 9. Group in Australia, 8. Now, study group directory, this time, there's a total number of listed groups, 401, 481 group. In US, there's 242 groups listed. In non-US, 159 groups. And virtual study groups, which are growing very fast, 87 groups. Now, we know that a lot of people will register their group somewhere else. So I would invite, if you're a host of a study group, to register your group everywhere you can. You know, the more it is available, made available throughout different sites, you know, different websites, the better it is, you know. And not only should the study group directory list study group, but I encourage every association to list the group in their own country, but also to encourage their members or the host of their study groups to list them in the study group directory. So it gives us, you know, numbers. Now, this thing there I wanted to show you, you know, sometimes when we think about the number of study group in the world, we look at how many countries there are in the world. You know, there's 196 countries in the world, 30 countries with study groups. So imagine how much work we still have to do. There's a number of cities in the world, 300,000 cities in the world. Cities more than 1 million inhabitants, 457. And city more than 150,000 inhabitants, 2,896. City in the US, 19,355. Now we have to think, you know, if we're going to have study groups, how many study groups does it take in one city to change the mindset of the people of that city? So these are questions, you know, that when we answer those or try to answer those, we know that there's a need of more than one study group in one city to change the mindset of the people within that city. So let's keep moving. Population of North America is 428 million. South America, 387 million. Europe, 739. And population of Africa, 1 billion. Population of Asia, 4 billion. And population of Australia, 23 million. So imagine, think again about how many study groups it would take to change the mindset of all those people. For some, it is mostly social gathering where some reading is done accompanied by a meal or snack. So that these are many different kinds of study groups. I'm not judging them. I'm just saying what kind they are out there. Some others just keep reading the book in sequential order, doing a complete reading of the book every year. Others do topical study held by a search engine from someone's computer by material that was previously selected. Some require that the student prepare in advance by reading the chosen paper for the coming session. Others just read and study the fourth part of the book, The Life of Jesus. In some group, it is like a lecture given by a host with period of question and comments. Some group are a debating forum where intellectual comprehension prevails, sometimes to the detriment of spiritual meaning and value. Many groups meet every week, while others meet twice a month, and others meets once a month. Some groups meet at home, while others meet in variety of public places. If you think about all these groups there's many kind, and probably there's more than that I don't know about, but you might know about. So, question that we have to ask ourselves: why start a study group when you want to start a study group? Or why did you start a study group when you started yours? What do you want to accomplish with the study groups? Do you think study groups are important to the mission of the relation? If so, how important are they? How do you see your role as a study group host? Do you feel any responsibility toward the mission of the revelation as a host of a study group? If so, what are they? What role do you think study group have in regards to the mission of the Urantia Book? What role can study group play in the promotion of leaders and teachers? Do you think dissemination of the Urantia Book and its teaching should be promoted or taught in study groups? How can study group help participants in the integration of the teaching? What is the meaning of living the teaching? How can study groups help in this matter? Things to consider. You know, when you try to answer the question that I just enumerated there, it makes us think, you know, what can we do in our study groups so that it can accomplish something good? Not only to read the book, you know, and have a goal to finish one reading every year, which some group do. I know some people told me they've been reading the book for 15 years and they've been through 15 times the book. And some others that I met said, you know, after reading it 5-6 times from start to end, what's the use to be in a study groups? So, you know, when you hear people saying these things, so that it means that the groups they attended needed some improvement. So always keep in mind those two goals: to expand cosmic consciousness and enhance spiritual perception. Remind yourself often, and the participant of your group, of the mission of the Urantia Book. If you don't know it, there's a good chance you'll never pass this knowledge to the people within your group. So as a host, you need to know this goal, those two goals, and share them with your group so they know why they're there. Keep exploring the reason why study group are so important to the mission of the revelation, and you will always find new answer to this question, to this meditation. Inspire yourself from the publication mandate. I know some people don't believe in the mandate. I do. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Whoever wrote it, you know, I don't question whoever wrote it, but I know by reading it, it sounded, you know, logic to me, and with a lot of reason in it and wisdom. Read all you can about study groups, stories, shares, and newsletters, and story from their beginning. There's all things you can learn about study group, and they're so important, so interesting. Participate or visit different study groups in person or virtually. And today, it's very easy to do. You can go on the internet, go to the directory, and look up all those groups that are there, virtual group, and just attend one, you know, once in a while, and you know how they're being done there. Improving effectiveness. Now, how can we be more effective within a study group? I think we need to have some clear objective about what we want to accomplish in the group and share them with the groups. They need to know where you're going. acquire new techniques of learning and teaching. And at the end of this presentation, I will share with you a few links that I have. I have a repertoire of study aids for study groups on my computer, and it's in Dropbox. I will share the link to you, and I will show you what's in there. And in this folder, there's research material that I've done, and there's many research been done about how we learn things and what's the best way of learning. And you will be surprised about everything they say there. Sometimes things that we believe are effective are not effective at all. Introduce new ways of studying Urantia Book. Help students become involved in service projects. We all know that without experience, nothing is acquired. So if you have a group and you tell the students that once they go out, you give them a little challenge. And Jeffrey Waddle, in last year's session of his study groups online, has elaborated, or last year or the year before. Someone has must mute his microphone. And so I'm going to share with you some of those documents that Jeffrey prepared to have good study groups. And in those papers, he has things that students need to achieve for the next week session. So it's pretty good. Focus on spiritual and intellectual growth, not only on intellectual. And how do we do that? And I can explain a little bit more later. Encourage participants of your group in making presentation to the study groups. That's a good way of creating new teachers. If you have participants within your group, doing a summary of the reading that was done, or do a presentation on the team, a special team, they can do that once in a while. It'll improve their understanding of those subjects. As a host, take UBIS course to improve your skill at facilitating your group. And UBIS courses are available all throughout the years in different languages. So there's no reason for you not to take those courses. And they will teach you a few ways of how teachers or facilitators can achieve, better skills, acquire better skills to improve teachings. Use presentation or study aid to foster teaching skills. Nurture natural leaders and teachers in your group by sharing responsibilities. Make your study group more dynamic by changing the format. And sometimes we feel comfortable in our group because we always do the same thing. It's easy. People get there at the same time. We do the same thing. But try to change that. And make sure that the groups agree with those changes so they embrace them. Keep the focus on the real goal of the study groups. Introduce ways of disseminating the teaching in your group so each reader can share in their responsibility of uplifting our world. So you have to think, what's the use of having a study group? Is people go out and they never disseminate those teachings they have received so well. But to disseminate the teaching in the good ways, we need to acquire them within our own life. We need to integrate those teachings. You need to be the carrier of that truth. You need to live that truth if you want to be a very effective disseminator. So you need to have in your group ways of teaching the participant how to achieve that, how to do that. But some of them might already be doing that, and they might share their own experience with others. Use material already available to help and teach readers of your group on how to share the Urantia Book and its teaching. Study the life of Jesus in your group to learn how Jesus was spreading the truth. And this is one thing the publication mandate told us to do. Well, it's telling us to do, to go back to the life of Jesus and see how he was doing it. I went through what to do. A reminder, before a session starts, prepare yourself by engaging in a prayer session, asking for guidance and wisdom for you and the group. You know, some people just, I know some group don't even have a prayer at the start or a meditation period at the start. And people get there very excited, you know, and they're not totally focused. But if you prepare yourself in advance, ask for guidance and wisdom, you'll change the nature of your group. And you will look at the participant in the different ways, because they are your responsibility as a host when they come to your place or to the place you've chosen to have this group. At the beginning of the study session, invite the participant to engage in a silent meditation or prayer so that their minds are open to new spiritual insight and meanings. And that's very, very important to me, because if we come in a study group is to acquire those spiritual insight or their spiritual truth, what better way than by prayer to start that session? After the study session, before we retire for the night, pray for every participant so that the study session they have just experienced is spiritually integrated in their life. Make sure you establish a protocol of participation for your group. Whoops, sorry about that. Oh, I went too far. Okay, make sure there's a protocol. So I'm going to show you a small protocol about how it can be done. So this is an example. And this is what I do in my group. So I'm not good at, I don't know, many people might do it differently. The host decides when it is time to begin. Welcomes everyone, explain the protocol, makes any needed announcement. In our group, my wife has introduced a new things there. Before we start the session, people are required, the participants are required to share with the group what is it they're grateful for during that day or during the previous week, you know, that preceded the group. And it's amazing what it does to people. You know, it focuses people on the good things in their life. And people share, you know, sometimes they're just grateful that they be at that group, or they share, you know, different things that happened in their life. And it helps other people focus on the, you know, the most important things in their life. Participant will pause in silence for several seconds after each reading and after each person's speech. The purpose of this is to allow the soul to listen and spirit to respond. So in our group, when we read, we choose, you know, I choose different papers and I make sure that the whole group agree with the paper I choose. Even if we have new participants in the group, we always choose paper that are, you know, easy for everyone to understand, or they agree to, depending where they are. And then I will have someone to read one paragraph or two or three. And after that, that person that I've read is welcome to express what they understand, what they perceive spiritually or intellectually, what they feel about what they've read. And while they do this, they might take a few seconds or even a minute or two to think about what they will say. And the other participants are asked to wait in silence and even pray if they want to, and or even think about what those paragraphs meant for them. And then once that person expressed what she has learned, or, you know, what she has perceived, then we go on to the next one. I ask for another one, but there's always respect at the table, so that when someone is talking, no one is cutting them off, so that the flow of inspiration can come through without any interruption. So when someone is speaking, other participant will listen without interrupting or making comments till they are invited to do so by the host. So there's a lot of some discipline at first, because sometimes people we have one in our group that sometimes, you know, barge in, you know, and I have to refrain him all the time, but it's all right. People learn to respect and to listen. Study must have practical value and can be enhanced by sharing life experience that depicts well the passages of paper or paper being read. Some adaptation of the Jesus grievance procedure will be a method for resolving serious problems if and when they arise where particular individual. The host does the session by inviting participants to share their appreciation of the session. Now, other thing to consider. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for now, and I'm gonna come back later. I have to. I'm gonna, okay. I have a set of guidelines for study groups that are very extensive that I have put in that folder there to share. I don't want to read all that stuff because it's quite extensive, but guidelines that you can use in your study groups to help you achieve better quality in your group, better effectiveness about the study in the group. So you have to think that study group are very important activity where reader can meet and share their own understanding and interpretation of the teaching of the Urantia book. Not only sharing those two aspects are important, but being able to associate them with actual life experience is one of the key to make those interpretation of the teaching easier to understand and integrate in one's life. According to the publication mandate and specifically emphasized in this quote, you must again study the time of Jesus on earth. You must carefully take note of how the kingdom of heaven was inaugurated in the world. Did it evolve slowly or unfold naturally? Or did it come with sudden show of force and with spectacular exhibition of power? Was it evolutionary or revolutionary? We must find better ways to share the Urantia book and its teaching without raising resistance or suspicion on the part of those we are trying to enlighten. What better ways to share the teaching than by becoming a living example of those led? And then this same document that I'm reading from, there's a set of guidelines there. There's many things there that can be gleaned so that you have, a good study groups. There are other things also to consider. To be more effective, study groups should have regular schedule and meet as often as every week. And why is that? So I'm going to take a little example. If you are a bodybuilder, you like to build big muscle, do you think by doing it once every month, you'll acquire this beautiful body that bodybuilder have? No. You have to be at it 3, 4, 5 times a week, at least. So I think if you want to be in contact with God, and grow spiritually, you need to, I don't say to have study group every day, but at least I believe we should have it once a week. It's like going to church, Why do you think the church or Jesus, introduced the 7th day, or Adam and Eve, we work 6 days a week or whatever. We take the 7th day to think about God. So study groups are probably one of the ways we could do that. For some of us, we quit our own church. Not all of us, but some of us did. And what better way to replace that church going by going to a study groups and engaging in socializing with other people and reading and learning? It's like Bible study group that some of you might have gone when you were young, especially in US, you do have those practice. So try to have a study group as often as you can. I know one of my friends online, Gaétan, and my wife went to Africa not long ago to meet some readers there in Senegal. And, for about 30 years and more, they were meeting every day. How many of us could do that? Every day they would have a study groups and they would share what they would learn with each other during those sessions. And when we went back last month, we've experienced how they are. They share with us their knowledge and what they do. And we were just amazed. And, I came back and say, wow, we're far behind, They really did attain some understanding, not only understanding intellectually, but how to do that in their own life. So try to have study group as often as you can. Participants should be told in advance of the next session topic or paper to study, so they can prepare during the week by reading the appropriate paper. Some papers are more focused on spiritual growth, while others are more dedicated to intellectual matter. Both are essential to cosmic consciousness and spiritual perception. The host should make wise choice about which paper to study, depending on the kinds of participant. Make use of a UBIS course in your study group at least once a year. I was fortunate. My friend Gaétan has shared with me a few of his courses in French that we've done in our own study groups at home. Usually we do once a year. And the experience that came out of it, when we asked people, how did you like the experience? They said they have learned more by doing this than at any other time. So, it's good material because it has questions. And when you do ask questions, then there are, possibility of people looking for answers and learning more things. Have participants make a presentation on different topics. Make use of graphical study aids to help students stay interested, motivated, and help them understand difficult concepts. Many such aids are available on different association websites. And I will provide to you all those links to access those websites. And there's a plethora, an immense quantity of material available, graphic text, to help you have good study groups. So make full use of those. If you have many new readers in your group, make sure they feel welcome by choosing a paper they would like to explore. Try to keep the study varied and pleasant. When questions are asked, invite the participant to answer and only provide additional enlightenment if truly needed. It is not about having the last word. Use appropriate article published in UI Journal or Messenger as a topic for study. The journals are full of good articles that you can explore. And you could, use different articles about faith, whatever you choose, and have everyone, you could print those and have everyone have a copy and go through whatever was written there and see if you can come up with different ideas. Make the study map practical and current by matching it to actual situation of the world. Sometimes there are things in the world that happen. We can use those things that are happening and find passages in the book that relate to those events and see how we can come up with good answers so that when people talk about them, those events with friends, they have the right answer to provide. This is one good way of disseminating the teaching without talking about the Urantia Book, but just talking about the truth. The study group will reflect the personality of the host as well as its participant, but a study group without a good host rarely makes a good group. Remember, hosting a study group is a very important privilege and carry rewarding responsibility. Now, there are also other things you can do with the study groups. Have a plan with your group. If you don't have a plan, like the old saying says, a failure to plan is a plan for failure. Study groups are like classroom. So have a plan about what you want to do. And if you don't know where you're going, you don't have any goals. It's like the saying that Jesus was famous, said by Jesus, the blind leading the blind. You don't want to be one of those hosts that this group didn't get anywhere or didn't get very far. So make sure you have a good plan with a good objective. Make sure the members of your group understand those objectives and carry the work with you. They participate in it. But make sure they agree with it, because if they don't agree with what you're doing, they will leave your group. So let me go back to this sharing. I'm just going to finish my PowerPoint, and then we can have a question and answer. So let's see. Partager. What did I get there? I get Star Wars film. I don't know what that is. Okay. So thousands of study groups might be created. So this is one of the goals we have. Other things to consider, I just been through those. Just a second. Okay, this is an excerpt from a letter to Ron Craig from Christie in 1981. When I tell you, you need to go back to the whole story of the study group, I found all kinds of good stories about study group from the 70s and some of the 80s. And that's how important for them it was at that time, study groups. So this is what she wrote, Christie. Not many people have writing made from Christie, and she was one of the last person alive that belonged to the Contact Commission. So one of our major job at this age is the program of starting many study groups. Thousands must be formed in order that we may have teachers and leaders prepare for the day when the Urantia Book and its teaching will meet many friends scattered all over the world. Even her, she associated leaders and teachers with study groups. Adam and Eve have been instructed to open what I call beacons of light throughout the world through their offsprings, but their default put an end to their doing so. I think perhaps we might help them out a little bit, but I have emotion when I read that by encouraging study group as we're told to do and fostering them until they can stand on their own. I'm sure that all of you bright and shining lights can find many wonderful services to render to your fellow men, and we are depending on you for strong leadership. Be of good cheer, Jesus said. Someday the message which I declare to you will rule this very world. That's a powerful saying, what she says, coming from Christie in 1981. When I read that the first time, I says, wow, I was really entranced by what she said. And I truly believe, because, when she talked about leaders and teachers and study group associated together, for me, it made all common sense. Why should we have study group if not just to create those people? So what an awakening the world would experience if it could only see Jesus and really live on earth and know firsthand his life-giving teaching. And we can accomplish that by having good study groups. So I don't know how much time we have. This is an hour has been through. So there's many more stuff. So, yeah, this is what I wanted to share with you, that folder, before we go for the exchange about study group. Let me find this material. I'll show you where it's at. And then I will share with you in the chat session the, where's that? Oh, here it is. So you see, this is the folder. It sits in a Dropbox, and this is the English one. So I got educational material there, PowerPoint presentation. I got study group mission copy, a little bit of what I just presented here with numbers and everything. I have study group guide. I have UBIS courses that were made and given for the PERT movement, people that go in prison. And study group method of spirits, a little bit about what I was talking about, the guidelines there. So if I go into the educational material, you will see there's all kinds of material there. And a lot of material has over 100 pages. And those that I was talking to you about from Jeffrey, there's 19 sessions that were done about study groups. And they're all there with all the material, as you can see for yourself. So this is session 4, for example, and you see it's all beautifully done. You got all kinds of material there for each session that you could use for your own groups. And at the end of every session, it's got some of the things. There's some challenge to be done during the week, some work to be done during the week. So this is good material. There's also another material here, which is Embark on Your Celestial Career by Carolyn Prentice, is how to become a teacher, a program that you can use in your study groups to improve teaching skills in people. And this is very, basic. Carolyn Kendall was a teacher at the university on communication and teaching, so she knows much about teaching. So this is a great help if you want to have a study group on that. There's also trained learning methods, that material that was gleaned from the American Scientific magazine that tells you different methods that were explored about learning, and you will be surprised at what they say about the common method we use today. And we think they're very effective, and in fact, they're not as much effective as we think. And there's all kinds of material there that you can glean from. There's another one here that was made by the fellowship, which has the 12 Apostles, and was, I think, created by David Kulyuki. He's the one that sent it to me, that you can, use with all the reference. And it's a very good study aids for, study groups. Now, you also have PowerPoint presentation, Angels in Our Midst, and the Path of Seven Heaven. If people wants to learn about what happens after you die, there's a presentation there that could last 2 hours. What about angels? It's always a popular theme, angels. And there's, like I said, UBIS course, Divine Perfection Plan, Inescapable Common. And I was asking the foundation to provide the UBIS courses so they can be made available to study groups after they've been done. So that would be great resources. So there's all kinds of material. And if you go on each, like I say, I'm going to share with you, now if I can find my document there at the end. I'll just share my screen for a second there, so yet you can see those documents, the link that I will share with you. Now here's those links. Now there's 2 books that are very good to improve quality of study groups. Speak for Yourself by Jessica Summers Driver. It's a book that was recommended by Jeffrey Wattle during his study last year or the year before. And The Sacred Art of Listening by Kay Lindahl, who was a workshop facilitator at the IC17 in the US. And she also did a workshop that I put online on Vimeo, so you can watch the workshop also. And her book are available online. Now, these are study aids link that I will provide to you. So what I will do, I will copy all of those, and I will share them within the comments section. I hope I'll be able to do that. And then you'll be able to, oh, did it work? Yes, it worked. Okay, I'm gonna, so here you have, you can copy all of those right now if you want, and they're linked to different association websites where you can find all kinds of study aids to help you with having a good study groups. So this is it for me. I know I don't give all the answers to all the questions you might have. I might have other things that I didn't say that you might have questions for that I could give you the answer. So if you want to give some, share some experience with your study group or ideas that you have about study group, this is the time to do it. So go ahead. No question. Yes, Jeff. Jeff, unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. It's funny, Gaétan, when you were starting to speak, I thought I've been blessed to have been in many study groups in many different places for many years. And so a good number of the suggestions that you gave, I've had the experience, and then you just kept giving more and more and more. So Thank you for taking this the step further, going the extra mile, because I think, as you said, it's so easy to fall into our comfortable patterns. And even when we have very good study groups, it's even easier because things are working. But this demonstration of what you're sharing here shows us that we can continue to grow and up the ante. So thank you very much.
Thank you. But if you'd have experience to share, you can do that, you know. Sharing experience study group always help others improve their own study groups.
Well, I would say that one thing that I've learned over the years from many people is that consistency, keeping the group going regardless of what happens. If one person comes or 12 people come and then maybe 2 people come and we think, oh my goodness, it's been a failure. And so just the consistency of the time and place is a very positive in the long term to keep the consistency going. That said, some very successful groups that I've been in over the years share the leadership of either just who's leader of the group, if there can only be one place in a town, a city that has the space or the availability, but share the leadership of the group. Or what we do in Florida is we meet every week, but it's in a different location. Mm-hmm. And so each time we're in a different space, of course, the flavor of the group can change just by that, so that keeps it fresh as well. So there's really so many different possibilities. And what you gave us here, we have started in our group here in Winnipeg to pray at the beginning of the group, and this was not something that the group did, and it has already in 3 weeks changed the dynamic of the group considerably. And your suggestion to also pray at the end, because by the end, we do our groups in the evening, we're tired, you know, we've been through a lot. It just seems to sort of fizzle out at the end, and I can see where if we take time at the end to do this prayer as well, that it would be a very powerful way for us to part rather than just to go immediately back into our life path. So I can see us applying that very soon.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you know, praying, the host can pray for the participant. This is what I do, you know. In our group, we are not yet there to ask every participant to share the prayer at the end, but I always pray for each member of the group after the group session, because as a host, we're responsible for those. We can pray for those that, you know, we invite to come to our home or wherever to come to our group. So as a host, you know, first we need to embrace that responsibility, spiritual responsibility toward those people that will want to share in the work that we're doing, you know, and share the same path that we're traveling. And it's true that it improved the group when people do that. But like I say, the practice that my wife has introduced, she can talk a little bit about it, you know, but we've had very good comments, you know, from people within the group about this practice, to be grateful, you know, to just say what we're grateful for during that day or the week that went by. So that's another way of focusing on the spiritual aspect of the group, or what is practical in our life. So anyway, that's thank you.
Gaétan.
Yes, Mark.
I was just thinking and listening to your comments, maybe it would be good for people to volunteer to be a speaker on a topic when it's for those virtual groups that are online. A person who has a topic they'd like to talk about and would be available could join an online study group for the purpose of a presentation of a paper on that group. Maybe the group would have a topic they might want some help with. So if people would volunteer to be on a list, and if you want to make the list available, that would be one way to add a little bit of dynamics to a group to help people study.
That's a very good suggestion, Mark. I'll take that down, and that'd be good. You know, we could publish such a list of people volunteering to make presentation within the study group, virtual. Even, you know, people don't have a virtual. Like, you know, what I wanted to say also is that our group is like it's both. It's not. We have a face-to-face study group while we do have a virtual study group going on at the same time. And Francine was with us at this time. She's in Mexico, and she attends our group every week. So we do have people, because of the winter time here, you know, or people traveling or people being sick, they cannot attend the group, but we made available to them the Zoom, you know, the Zoom invitation. So they come to our group virtually. And some weeks we have more people virtually. If some other week we have more people sitting around the table. And we have people within virtually that reads the paper, and people at the table read the paper and do comments and invite everyone to do comments. And that have really helped increase the number of participants within a group. And not only did it serve that, it always helped other people that didn't know about study groups attend our group to learn about how it was done. And 2 of them started their own groups. So I retain what you're saying, Mark, and definitely I will do something about that. I never thought of that, but that would be great. You know, I'm pretty sure some people here are able to do good presentation, and they could offer, you know, to do a presentation to those groups that are online. That would be great. Thank you. Yes, Guy.
Thank you. That was very good, and it's always good to be reminded of so many good tips on how to improve our study group. Like you said, one of the major thing is that people tend to go away. They just want to do it once a week and now once a month. I see that there's a trend in many places like that. And like you said about the bodybuilder, you don't get big muscle once a month, at least once a week. And now, I think anybody that understands experientially the value of a study group will do his utmost to be involved in 1, 2, and maybe more than that. And in fact, studying is almost become a daily activity. And having a higher conversation with other people. And I think the things that you point out, and you know, I have groups, and we always pray at the beginning, at the end. And sometimes people are a little bit shy to start with, but I have people that were really shy, and now we cannot stop them. So it's a question of practice. And once they feel they can pray spontaneously and let their thought adjuster do the work with them, it's pretty touching. And I think all of these things, as you mentioned, many things, are to enhance that union of soul. And I remember I went to, like you, to many study groups all over the world. And when people debate and argue, it's not really appealing. It's not very attractive. But when people really share their experience, it's really moving to feel one's soul. And anytime we can create that space, that circle of trust, I would say, like people really feel at peace and they can do these things, that's quite a blessing. And as you said about Lynn, we do that too. When people don't want to pray, I say, why don't you just say something you're grateful for? And usually they do that. They have no problem doing that. And I think, as you said, and Rodin addressed that, people get excited when they get together, especially if they live far away and things like that. And this emotional excitement can take over. And I think when we have a moment of silence and we pray, we really are able to commune from or be united from a higher place within each of us. And it really works. And well, I'm all with you, and we should have thousands of study groups. I have many weeks, and hopefully we can do more. And we're getting more here in Belgium, so that's good. Thank you, Gaétan. That was very good.
Thank you. Anyone else? William?
Yes, I just want to share about this moment of gratitude that we have introduced in our study group, because we've been having a study group since 1999. And we have people that are there since the beginning. And I could see that when Gaétan is asking for us to take a few minutes to reflect on the spirit that will be doing the work with us during the session, I knew that some of the people, of course, everybody's very calm and resting, but just wondering how far to go into that meditation. It's to them to figure it out. But I saw that with those people that were with us since the beginning, sometimes I didn't feel any kind of transformation within them. And I thought, well, what is it that everybody is always grateful for something? And there is this beautiful video that I had found a few years back of Brother David, which is called Gratitude. And this video moves me. It moves me every time. I probably heard it 100 times, but it just moves me. This man has a profound voice, and the vibes when he speaks, you know, it resonates within me. And I said, well, maybe I can share this with the study group people. And then I thought, maybe I could ask them, what is it really that moves you? So just as a moment of gratitude, I asked them, just say a word for people that are shy, excuse me, or a sentence for someone who wants to just, you know, elaborate on that word. And I really saw the transformation within the group, you know, everyone into the group, because we are between 12 and sometimes 17 people, because we have people virtually connected with us. And you could see those people, how they are touched in listening, you know. Sometime I could be grateful for my faith, for the faith that I am, that I have. And sometime somebody around the table will say, well, I'm grateful for the beautiful and sunny day that there was today. And somebody else is, I'm just grateful to be within the study group. So I feel that it enlarges people's spirit and mind in thinking of what they are grateful for. And I really think that it's really wonderful. There was this young woman on Zoom with us one Monday, and she said, you know, Lynn, as a matter of fact, I don't know if you did it by purpose in introducing this, but she says, since then, I think of how grateful I am during all the week. And I said, well, that's great. That's really wonderful. So it's a beautiful way for people if they don't want to pray. But if they are too shy to share something, they could just share just one word of what they are grateful for during the day, the week, the moment. Thank you.
Merci, Lynn. Thank you. Have any one of you ever heard that video about gratitude by Louis Schwartzberg? No.
Louis is the producer.
Producer.
Okay.
It's
You know
brother-
where we heard that for the first time?
This
Yes.
We heard
is-
that in Israel in the
Yes.
bus. Yeah.
But if you're interested in hearing it, I have the video online on Vimeo. It's a private, but I could play it for you if you want, if we do have time. You want to hear it, or just a second, I'd have to share my screen again. I hope you will hear the sound. I'm gonna blow up the screen. You see that now? Do you see the screen?
Yes, it's good. It's good.
Okay, tell me if you hear anything. You could even play that in your study group before, you know, it helped people focus.
Yeah,
hear
the
the
sound is.
music?
Yes, yes, yes.
You think this is just another day in your life? It's not just another day. It's the one day that is given to you today. It's given to you. It's a gift. It's the only gift that you have right now, and the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you do nothing else but to cultivate that response to the great gift that this unique day is, if you learn to respond as if it were the first day in your life and the very last day, then you will have spent this day very well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open. That incredible array of colors that is constantly offered to us for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from moment to moment with clouds coming and going. We just think of the weather, and even of the weather we don't think of all the many nuances of weather. We just think of good weather and bad weather. This day, right now, is unique weather. Maybe a kind that will never exactly in that form come again. The formation of clouds in the sky will never be the same that is right now. Open your eyes, look at that. Look at the faces of people whom you meet. Each one has an incredible story behind their face. A story that you could never fully fathom. Not only their own story, but the story of their ancestors. We all go back so far. And in this present moment, on this day, all the people you meet, all that life from generations and from so many places all over the world, flows together and meets you here like a life-giving water if you only open your heart and drink. Open your heart to the incredible gifts that civilization gives to us. You flip a switch and there is electric light. You turn a faucet and there is warm water and cold water and drinkable water. It's a gift that millions and millions in the world will never experience. So these are just a few of an enormous number of gifts to which we can open your heart. And so I wish you that you will open your heart to all these blessings and let them flow through you, that everyone whom you will meet on this day will be blessed by you. Just by your eyes, by your smile, by your touch, just by your presence. Let the gratefulness overflow into blessing all around you. And then it will really be a good day.
So this is the gratefulness video. Quite amazing. So I could provide the link for that, so you could probably play it at the beginning of your study groups to have people, you know, be in the mood, spiritual mood of what am I hearing? Oh, sorry. I was hearing Carolyn Kendall. She's gonna be coming online. So so I can send the link to, I should have copied the link. Maybe I can copy the link to, you will need a password, but what I'll do, I'll make it available to Jeannie and she can send it back out to you if you want to have it. You could post your email to her because it's a private, I don't own the right on this video, so I'm not allowed to open it publicly. But you could have it. Okay, so any more questions or comments about study? Yes, Gary.
Thank you, Gaétan. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. It was wonderful. Here in the United Kingdom, we are oming more on, for logistical reasons, virtual study groups. Now, you've got 87 study groups there. Do you have the information on every one, when they are starting, when they're finishing? Because I very much agree with you that you need to have a study group every week. And if you're meeting once a month, virtual study groups all around the planet, and yet we don't know where they are when they start.
If you go in the directory,
yeah,
where they are listed, you can have access to all of them and what language they're in,
yeah,
where they are, and what time they start.
Okay, I'm gonna say what time they start and everything there. So that's the first thing I've got from this year now. Secondly, you know, we say a prayer before we start, and also one of the things, we have some very interesting people with us now from Brazil in London, and they don't speak very good English. And one of the things we put forward, don't worry if you pronounce the name wrong, the number, whatever, we've got a book in front of us. You know, just be at home, and I think that's done an immense going forward with them, and now they cannot stop. Oh, I want to read this. Please let me read it. Before, it wasn't, because they didn't want to make that mistake. So I think that's very important there. So yes, as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to see these things come about so often, not once in a blue moon. The other thing you say about thousands of study groups, I think what we all know is that we shouldn't have the book for hundreds of years or whatever, and the thousands of study groups will come. If you have a look at my very good friend here in the United Kingdom, Richard Zan, who's now taken the book from Chinese, from the book, I think he's on paper 120 into Chinese. Everybody's doing their bit. You can lead an horse to the water, you can't make it drink. The other one, you can cast pearls before the swine. These are the things that's coming out that I've been brought up with the Urantia Book. What we didn't do, I think in the early days, I think they had people going around making sure that the study groups they were reading the proper things. I think there were people ordained to do that. And from my point of view, my thoughts to ponder. We have our summer meeting. We've got the international. I hope to be there for the international. It all progresses. But Rome wasn't built in a day or two. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, of course, they say thousands of study group. Remember, it's a plural. Thousands study group. We're not even at the 1,000 mark yet, you know. Let's hope. I'll be rejoicing. I hope I don't leave this planet before there's 1,000 groups in existence, you know, because I want to celebrate that number.
Okay.
Yeah, Francine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to say that I'm a reader of the Urantia Book since almost 14 years now. And I remember the first time the book found me. I couldn't understand anything of the book. And instead of just leaving it there, I had, by my good friend Lynn, the advice of join study groups. So for 13 years, I've joined different study groups. And I can say that without the study groups, I would be a Urantia Book reader for sure. These groups are necessary. The more I read it, the more I study it, the groups, the more I receive incentive and all the comments from all the participants. My understanding, my comprehension is really getting wider, and mostly the experience from it. And I am very grateful, and this is what I tell every time I join the group of the privilege being the study group Gaétan Charland, and I am always grateful about technology first, and then that Gaétan makes it possible for me to join. Because, you know, being in Mexico, I'm not fluently, but I don't speak Spanish fluently in order to join the group in Mexico. But being able to join from Mexico directly to the study group in Quebec is such a blessing for me. I always can't wait to be in a group, and I wouldn't miss anything. It's most great for you, Gaétan and Lynn, to see me. And, so that's my experience with the study group. I will not stop ever. Thank you.
Merci, Francine. Anyone else want to share the experience with study groups?
Yeah, Gaétan, I'll defer to somebody else if you want to talk. This is Mark. Okay, for the virtual group that we have, we've selected a theme, which is a theme question, which is, what does it truly mean for me to follow Jesus? And it's presented as a personal question for each individual to consider. And it seems to me that this is one of the great purposes of the Urantia Book, and one of the great purposes of why we have study groups, because it's personal. What does it truly mean can be augmented by two additional questions, like, what do I have to give up? And what do I have to add to my life? And this question harmonizes beautifully what you've been saying, Gaétan, about why we have study groups. And in the study group, we help each other. Nobody's required to give a report of the effect that it's having on them, both intellectually or spiritually. So, and you mentioned, Gaétan, in conferences you've been, but one of the purposes of this book, and it says so by the revelators, is to change in civilization. It's the effect on civilization is why we study the Urantia Book, because it's all personal. We're all involved. So if you got a theme for your study group, it may help you get into a meaning a little bit deeper. I'm done.
Thank you, Mark.
I think Geoff wants to speak.
Want to say something?
No, you.
Okay. This idea of our groups being more than just study, I think, is very important. And I think there's a current thought train around that. Well, we've studied enough. Now we need to do something else. And I think what more importantly, perhaps, is that we need to keep our study going, but to enhance our study with the types of things we're talking about, with prayer and worship, with fellowshipping, with support of each other, and the service. I think you mentioned, Gaétan, the service projects, you know, encouraging. So to actually make the concept of what a study group is, I think it's evolving now. At first, when we first encountered the book, we had to study it only to know what it said. But now enough of us have studied it, you know, the words and such enough that, and so just to grow this idea that study groups are no longer only study, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm getting from all the contributions that we're having here. What I felt inspired, we do have a weekly study group, but perhaps even the weekly study groups once a month could add an additional day and do a larger, what we might call a workshop or an in-depth study. So this could be another addition to study group formatting. And also in Florida, we're blessed to, once a year, we actually have a weekend retreat with one another. And we've done this 5 years now. And the growth that comes from this more intimate personal sharing has come back, and now our study groups are very different because we know each other on these deeper levels. So we can take this idea of weekly study group and say, well, add once a quarter or once a month, whatever it's practical. And then if you are so blessed to have a situation where you can actually spend a weekend retreat, the group is small at that point, maybe 20 of us or so, but this really enhances. And then one more thing, and I will hush. I'm inspired to not only be satisfied, okay, I have these wonderful 12-member longtime reader study groups. I think we need to go out and seed more study groups. That's what I'm getting more than anything here. Don't be satisfied with that. If you've got a good thing going, as challenging, as hard as it is to split up, we need to step out of our groups and go seed new groups, even if they're incy-bincy and they take a long time to grow. But how will we grow otherwise? We have to do that. So thank you for that inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Susan, you made a good point there by mixing study group with 1 month. Maybe you can meet together and have someone do a presentation. In Quebec, we had the opportunity for many years of having many one-day conferences 3 times a year, and we would use study groups to prepare the presentation for those many conferences.
Nice.
And people would engage within a study group to research a theme, and we would always choose theme that would be coherent with spiritual growth. So we'd choose themes that were also popular, like you would choose prayer, faith, you know, those paper 99 through 107, you know, they're very intimately liaised with spiritual growth and religious growth. So we really went into that. And of course, it's a great idea to do that, you know, to mix both of them together. Or even when you do have conference, to use people that have study groups experience and call on them, because that helps them become better teachers. You know, and I would also encourage people to be involved in all kinds of social projects. What better means than to share the teaching than by being involved in our own community and helping other people, without even saying we're Urantia Book readers. You know, a lot of people, if we say that, they'll think we're in a cult or something. But if we don't, and we just express love, understanding, compassion, and they will listen to us. And gradually, I've had the same experience with a group I've been going to for 15 years, you know, people suffering from anxiety. And once in a while, there are people coming to me and asking me, you know, where do you get this, you know? Or there's this lady lately, she asked me about faith. She says she wanted to know if faith removed fear. So, you know, so there's all kinds of opportunities. So imagine if we have thousands of study groups and there's at least, let's say an average of 8 people within each group, how much influence are they in their own family, with their friends? And if they're involved, they're all involved in social projects. Imagine some of them could be politicians, some of them could be doctors, some of them could be educators, teachers. So they could, you know, I believe this is how we could make a really, really a good influence, a big influence in the world. But we need a lot of study groups. Guy Perron, with someone in Belgium, they're involved in the prison project. So you might share with that. I think it's a study group they have in prison. So, which is good. You want to talk about it, Guy, a little bit, or you want to share your experience?
There's people here, and after they're gonna leave, we can talk about it.
Okay, good.
2 minutes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. So there's all kinds of things we can do to, you know, and if we encourage people within study groups to be involved in small projects, and then and find ways to integrate those teaching within those projects, that'll be a tremendous help to the world. I remember when I had this study group, my sister and my mother, for many years. And one week, my brother-in-law, which was not a reader, but he would attend the group and he would read with us, you know. And I gave them a project for 1 week, and I say, what if during this week, you will think about the love of God and how you can manifest that love with the people you work with or you meet. And he looked at me and said, oh, okay, you know, he didn't know how to go about it. And he was a manager in a company where they make furnitures and covers. And it used to be very intense. So the week after, we came back to the study group, and I says, okay, let's share that experience that we might have had by thinking about the love of God and sharing it with the people around us. And he said, Jesus says, you know, that changed the way I look at people I work with. He says, usually, you know, it would be after them, you know, and be intense on them, you know, and chastising them. And he says, you know, by thinking about that all week, he says, I look at them in different ways now. So, you know, little things sometimes change the way, and study groups are a good place to do that, you know, to ask people to do something during the week. That's how to be effective. Now, in the folder that I share in Dropbox, there's a document there that's 111 ways how to share the teaching in Urantia Book. Hello. And this paper was written by Vern Grimsley.
Wow.
And I found a French translation and I made it available. And in fact, there's more than 101 ways. There's 111 ways. And it's very interesting to read this paper. And we could use that, in study groups to try to elevate the knowledge about how to share the teachings. And if Urantia Book reader within a study group don't share those teachings, or they just talk about the book, well, we know what it does when you talk too much about the book. You know, people shy away. But if we learn ways to share in a natural way the teaching, there's all kinds of things we could do to influence society. So you want to share with us, Guy, what this project, or can you do that now?
Oui, elle est en train de dire bonjour à Lynn, là.
Okay.
Okay. C'est bon?
Oui.
So what we basically do is that Agnes will talk about it because she initiated. Gary is there.
Oh, yeah.
Gary, you know Agnes? Okay. Jeff, and Jeff is from Canada. Susan, you're from Florida? Florida, okay. Joe DiMaggio, he's been resurrected because he's used to be a famous baseball player. Okay, Mark is in the States, and Jeannie is in Uruguay, and it's Canadian.
Yeah.
So basically, you said, Gaétan, at the beginning that until we really serve, we don't get it. It's stay intellectual. It's a beautiful book. And when people criticize the book, I say, well, at the worst, it's going to be the best love story you will ever read. And the first part will be the best science fiction book you will read. And when the people start to get it, they understand that they need to serve. And sometimes it's difficult. Some people are a little bit shy and more introverts. So what we did, in fact, what Agnes did, is that she had a study group once a month, and 3 times a month, that same group is invited to go for prison ministry. So basically, we continue what we do. We don't have the books, but we basically share on the teaching. We cannot bring the book in prison. But we share the teaching with the inmates, and for us, they're not inmates, they're brothers, and it's pretty amazing the opportunity that we have to bring God to them and see how God, in many ways, transformed them much quicker than people that are outside the prison. So anyway, I'm going to let Agnès talk more about it. Parle des groupes d'études, l'importance des groupes.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so, well, hello to everybody. Ever since, well, I started working in prison in March last year. And as a matter of fact, I was there as a teacher. And I was giving, how do we call gestion du stress?
Stress management.
Stress management. And, well, very quickly, for me, it was to bring the knowledge that God was in each of them, and that the sooner they got in contact or they tried to have a relation with this God in them, the better their lives would be. And so very quickly in those lessons, I came up with that, and I want to see how they were going to react to that. And they were very open to that. So my time of giving lessons finished in June, and in June I decided, well, not to leave them, because it was as if my soul could not accept that there was an end to that, because really those 2.5 hours per week, well, were moving a lot of things in them. So it was impossible for me to say there's a stop to that. So I asked permission to the head of the prison to be allowed to come during the holidays and to continue at least once a month. And well, during the holidays I went 3 times, and in September it came that I started to go three Sundays. And ever since, well, we do nearly each Sunday morning, we continue working with them. And the group, the study group, it's more how can I, it's testimony of how we live ourselves, our personal, personal relationship with the adjuster. And so, well, everybody, well, explains how it happens for him or her when they are living things difficult, because we know that fear and anger and such things are a screen which enables God to respond to us. So we also work on that, because there's a lot of frustration and anger and fear in prison. So, well, we work on that as well. When I say we work on that, we just listen to that, and we are with no judgment, no criticism, nothing. We just well, let them talk about that, and then we pray. We pray for them to be, how can I say, sustained through what they are living there, because it's their reality at that moment. And well, it's really great, because we see how they improve, how they turn to God, how it's easier for them to be in the prayers at the beginning of the session and at the end of the session. So it's really, really, really important. And we really feel that also for those in prisons, for the prisoners and for the people coming from outside, both learn in the situation. And both are more, I can say, in brotherhood. We are really in brotherhood. There's not, you are a prisoner and God doesn't love you. No, we are there not to tell them that God loves them, but to be a channel through where God loved, through which God loves them. And that is really, that's the mystery of the mystery for me, is to see how God, through us, just because we don't have those prejudgments and those criticism and those beliefs, well, without all that, God can use us and uses us effectively to do the job. It's not us doing the job. We are just there trying to be available for God, because if there are people who don't think that anybody can love them, it's those people, because they think that they have done the worst things and that nobody can love them anymore. So being
and believe me, the guards makes all effort to remind them that.
Yeah.
So, you know, the guards are there to punish them. I can understand why. It's a culture thing, you know. Culturally, they're there, and you know, those are bad guys, and you know, they're there not to give them any favor. So they're kind of really distracted by our presence, and things change. They start to be nice to us now. And you know, one of the big thing is, Agnes was telling, there's people from all over the world that are praying for you. So they were saying, yeah, you know. But one Sunday I show up with Agnes, and she said, that's one of the guy who was praying for you. And they were really touched and moved by that. And they received a prayer from our Senegalese brother that we brought in with us. And we never think we go in prison. We really think that we go see brothers that are there. And, you know, in many ways, all of us could have made a mistake at one point, you know, on an emotional outburst, or, you know, and instinctively an impulse. Or one guy is there because, you know, he went out with his friend and he got caught driving, drunk driving. 6 years in jail for drunk driving. Wow, it changed his life. So it's like a breath of fresh air for them. Last week, we went 3 times for a stress management course for, what was the other one? Change their image of themselves. And another one is a circle of consciousness. That's the one we do on Sunday. And wow, it's, you know, we learn a lot from them. It's really powerful. You know, we might think it's a task, but for us, it's a joy to wake up on Sunday and go there. Something needs to happen. It's really, and just to finish, as Agnes was saying, I remember one day a woman came with us and she was fearful, young woman in her 30s. And she was tense, you know, we felt that when she got in, and, you know, all these, so after maybe half an hour in the room with us, she started to cry for half an hour. And then when we got out, we asked her why. So all her prejudice, all her preconceived idea of prisoner went down the drain very quickly. And for it was quite a liberation to experience that, because I think we judge a lot and we are full of opinions about so many things.
Thank you. Thank you. If I would say something, remember that once you have a study group at some place, it's like a beacon of light. If we could see, spiritually see, the spiritual light coming out of the study groups, like the angels probably see and all those celestial beings, and that attracts, and I'm pretty sure when we do have study groups, there are celestial beings attending the group with us. And when we do pray before a group, we invite, you know, all those spiritual influence to be part of the group. But of course, we don't see that. And that I'm reminded that one time at my sister's place, she had trouble with one of her young, and he was really under the influence of bad guys. And I used to have a group every week, and he would sit in the living room beside, and sometimes playing games with his headset on, and sometimes he would remove his headset and listening to us in the other room in the kitchen. And one week I asked my sister, I says, you know, we could have the study group at my place, you know, you could come join me at my place, you know, because there was not that many people at her group anymore. She says, no, she said, I don't want that. I said, why? Well, they said, I think it's a big influence on my son. And eventually, her son turned out very well. And I'm pretty sure study groups had an influence on him. Because at the end, he would come in, sit with us. And I could not believe it at the beginning. You know, he would sit at the table for the last half hour. And I would ask him, I said, would you want to read with us? No, he said, I would just listen. And then he would just listen, you know, and then... And I think him and I have enjoyed a very close relationship, you know. I think I'm very close to him, even if we didn't have open talk. But I think he appreciates my presence very much. And without having the study group for over 10 years at this place. So when you do have a study group at one place, you definitely have an influence on the people living in that place. It's kind of a, I don't know, it does something to your house also. So, you know, and people, when they come to our home, they would say, geez, it feels peaceful here. Mm-hmm. You know, even the cats want to come in the house. Anyway, that's another story. Anyway, so we're at the end of our group. I want to thank Jenny for organizing this. She's doing
my pleasure.
Job. She's doing a great job of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. My pleasure to serve you. And thank you. Thanks to you, Gaétan, for this beautiful and valuable lesson, and everyone who made a contribution to our understanding about this important subject. Thank you very much. God bless you. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining this session. I hope you enjoy it, and go look at this folder. I'm probably going to make that PowerPoint presentation available to you in that folder also. So you're going to have access to all those bullet point thing to look for a good study groups.